Thank you for that. I would now like to introduce our candidates who you see are on the stage, seated in alphabetical order. Unfortunately, Zakir Bengali could not be here this evening. He's apparently traveling out of the country, but we thought we'd leave a nameplate up so everybody knows that there are 8 candidates running here, not just 7. So let's welcome the 7 candidates who we do have here, and please feel free to applaud each one. We have Michael Bunitsky.
Thank you, Cliff. Thank you.
Lois Jarman. Ken Kerr. Jay Mason. Shirley McDonald. Cindy Rose. And Joy Schaefer. Thank you, candidates, for coming out and joining us this evening. We appreciate you being here. So keep your eyes on this highly technical light setup in front of you. That'll help you with some of the timing tonight. Amber means 15 seconds to go. Red signals that your time is up. And at that point, please, by all means, finish your thought. However, if you tend to run on, I will be giving you a polite, I will be bringing on the hook politely to end your talk. No, I will interrupt them politely. So now, to begin the forum, I would like to begin with opening statements. We're inviting the candidates each to give 1 minute on why they would like to run for the Board of Education and to introduce themselves. We'll be going in alphabetical order, and at the end, with the closing statements, we will be going in reverse alphabetical order. So we'll start with Mike Bunitsky. 1 minute.
Okay. Yes, it's working. Thank you, Mr. Cumber and the Frederick News Post for hosting this evening. Thank you all for coming to hear us. The BOE is important to all of the candidates up here. Obviously, it's important enough to you to come out this evening. Thank you for that. I'm married to Jan Daffern, who is a pastor and psychotherapist, and between us we have 4 sons. Each of them has received a great education in Frederick County. So I have been and will continue to be invested in our school system as a parent. I've been employed in Maryland as an educator since 1975, first in PG County in a junior high school, and in 1980 I moved to Frederick. I taught at Governor Thomas Johnson High School from 1980 to 1995. In 1995, I moved to the central office where I wrote lessons, curriculum, assessments, observed teachers, and helped them to improve by being in their classrooms and doing observations. I'm running for the board because it's the right thing to do at the end of my career in education. I believe I have a unique perspective, and I can bring that perspective to a variety of constituencies.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to Lois Jarman. Mrs. Jarman, 1 minute.
Good evening. My name is Lois Jarman. I want to thank you all for being here and to hearing the opinions and beliefs of the candidates on the important issue of education and the education of our young people. In the summer of 1980, I met a young midshipman, and he changed my life. We ended up traveling with his Navy career, and in 1987, we settled in Frederick County after he took a job with Delta Airlines. And I was a stay-at-home mom with my children until my son entered middle school, and at that time, he told me I couldn't come back and volunteer anymore. It wasn't cool. And so I started with FCPS as a substitute teacher when my son was in the middle school, because he said that the earnings I made from substitute teaching would be allowed to use to purchase a season ticket plan at the Orioles for him. So I substitute taught for a number of years, and then I was offered a long-term teaching position, a substitute position, and I fell in love with being in the classroom. I've been a classroom teacher for the last 17 years, and I've noticed a dramatic change in our education over the course of that time. We have become focused on some things that I think need to be changed. And so as Frederick County Public Schools changed my life, I think it's time that I give back and work towards changing Frederick County Public Schools. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving on to Ken Kerr.
Good evening, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to interview for the job as a member of the Board of Education, because essentially that's what we're doing here this evening. All of us up here are applying for 3 open jobs. Tonight, we'll answer questions about the job in an attempt to convince you, the voters, the ones who get to choose, that we are the best candidates for the job. Who's the most prepared? Who's the most qualified? Who's the most able to work cooperatively as a member of a team to face the many challenges facing Frederick County Public Schools? I have 20 years in education, 10 years in private industry, and 40 years in Frederick County. A teacher, an administrator, a businessman with a demonstrated record of success, teamwork, and results. Over the next 90 minutes, I hope to convince you that my preparation, qualifications, and temperament deserve your vote.
Thank you, Dr. Kerr. Now we move along the line to Jay Mason. 1 minute.
Sorry, Jay. It's okay.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out. Thank you, Frederick News Post, for hosting us this evening, and FCC. I'm born and raised in Frederick County, so I think I bring a unique perspective to the board and to some of the other candidates. My parents moved to Lewistown when I was 2.5 and still live there. I have a 12-year-old in the Frederick County Public Schools. I'm married, and I also have 2 other kids, so I have a total of 3. And I've been dedicated to Frederick County, and I want to continue my dedication as a member of the Board of Education. I started in 2011 with eliminating achievement gaps, and in 2014 they made me the president. And from that moment on, I decided that I had to do a lot more advocating to help our parents, to help our students, to help our school system, to help our community continue great Frederick Public County Schools and the Board of Education. I have a master's degree in elementary ed. I got that in 2011, and that was a turning point in my life to help me focus on education so that I can help others focus on education. I think our children are so valuable, and my story is unique. I come from a very unique perspective, so I think I'll add a whole lot different path to the Board of Education in 2016. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now, Shelley McDonald, 1 minute.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming tonight. My husband and I moved to Frederick County from Montgomery County in 1979. In 1984, when my children began school in Frederick County, I became an advocate for public education with the PTA. I continued that advocacy through PTA by becoming president of the PTA at Green Valley Elementary. I then began my teaching career in 1993. I taught for 21 years. Now, as a retiree, I became a part of the Citizens Advisory Council through the Board of Education. I'd like to continue my advocacy for public education through the Board of Education as a part of a way to give back to the community and to continue that advocacy. So I'm looking for your support in that adventure as I continue my advocacy for public education. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On to Cindy Rose, 1 minute.
I want to thank you, Cliff, and the Frederick News Post for having the forum and for everybody for coming out here tonight. July of last year, one of our elementary school teachers resigned. She resigned because she was told that her music class should not be singing. It wasn't academic enough. This spring, some of you may have seen award-winning social study teachers Matt Johnston speak at the Board of Education. He spoke about the policy of making a student's high school transcript read not college and ready if your park score didn't reach a certain amount. Mr. Johnson is aware of how flawed that designation is, and he's vowed to resign on July 15 of this year if that practice is still in place. Beware the Ides of July, perhaps. We don't talk about what our children learn anymore. We don't have to because outsiders now control those things. What those outsiders have brought in is a testing culture. Everything is secondary to the test and the score. I'm running for BOE because I don't recognize education anymore. What used to be a place of joy and discovery has turned into an institution of sorting, tagging, and bagging our children based on flawed, standardized outcomes. I'm running because I want to restore local control in education. That means putting the power back in the hands of parents, teachers, and our community. I'm running because I want to keep Mr. Johnson and bring back the singing.
Thank you very much. Joy Schaefer.
Good evening. I'm Joy Schaefer, and thank you to the Frederick News Post and to FCC for hosting, and for you all to coming out and getting educated about your Board of Education candidates. I currently serve on the board and was elected in 2012, and I could talk to you in my brief time about the education experience I have, the professional experience I have that made me qualified to sit as a board member to begin with, as well as the growth that I've experienced as a board member and knowing how to be an effective board member. But I wanted to tell you why I chose board service for public education. And it's because you can draw a direct line to where I am today, to the public schools that I went to as a child, and to the caring teachers and staff that guided me to where I am today. And what I want for all of our students in Frederick County is to have that optimal learning experience, those caring teachers and staff in every classroom and in every building. And the Board of Education's job is to make those conditions so in our county schools to make sure that that's able to happen. So I hope that you'll support me in the primary and in the general as I continue working toward that goal.
Thank you very much. Candidates, please give them a round of applause. As I mentioned, the candidates will have the opportunity to make some closing remarks at the end for 1 minute, and we'll go in reverse alphabetical order. I should mention, if you miss any of the answers or are unclear on any of the answers, we will have this up on our website as a video, hopefully sometime tomorrow. We're live streaming at the moment, so if there's anybody at home who you know who can't be here but would like to watch, they can find the live stream at www.fredericknewspost.com. Anyhow, so let's move on to the main event. We're going to have 4 rounds this evening. We'll have a lightning round just to get everybody warmed up a little bit. Those will be the same question to everybody, and you will have a minute to answer. In round 2, each candidate will be given their own, their own unique question. You'll have 2 minutes to answer. The candidates who are not answering will have a minute to choose one of those 6 questions that they're not being asked to answer if they wish to rebut, or if they wish to respond, or if they wish to answer that particular question. So that's 1 minute. Once you've used it, you have to sit on your hands for the rest of the round, okay? So just 1 minute. Then we'll do it all again for rounds 3 and 4. We'll have a lightning round again, and then we'll have another slightly longer, deeper question and answer round. So let's begin with the lightning round. I just make sure all the candidates are good with the, everybody understands? Excellent. So let's move on to our lightning round. We're going to start at this end with Mr. Bunitsky, and we are going to ask the question to all of you. Please feel free to ask me to read it again if you don't hear it or you don't understand it. What differentiates you from the other candidates for the Frederick County Board of Education up here tonight? You have 1 minute to answer.
The perspective that I bring to the board and the history that I have, going from teaching kindergarten through college, observing teachers, working with teachers, creating professional development, being in classrooms on both sides of the classroom, it differentiates me in many ways. I have been presenting to boards of education since the 1980s. I started doing presentations to the board to get texts approved, to get assessments approved, to get new courses approved, and I've been watching the board since Tony Goff, Sue Rovin, Claude DeLauder. I've been interacting with those boards for many, many years. And I understand when the board is functional and when it's not. And I know when it's stymied and when it's created issues for teachers and students. And I know when it's moved forward. And I've seen the ability to bring adults together is something that it takes people that are willing to compromise. And I can do that. I know all the sides.
Thank you very much. Lois Jarman, 1 minute.
I think that the perspective that I bring that is unique is the most recent classroom experience. I'm still teaching. I'll be teaching tomorrow morning. And so dealing with students firsthand, dealing with what is required of teachers firsthand. But I've also been a parent. I was also a student. I was an active parent, so I understand what parents are going through in terms of trying to understand what's going on in our schools. I understand when parents are frustrated when communication doesn't appear to be there. So I've sat on both sides of the fence in terms of that. And I've also been very active in the community in terms of public service via the local theater organization, through the hospital auxiliary. So just working with people in general, I think that I bring to the board as well, and being able to problem solve, I think, is an important skill that I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ken Kerr.
You may know that I work here at this wonderful institution, the best community college in the state of Maryland, if not the United States of America. And I just completed leading the reaccreditation study. That's a 2-year process where we look top to bottom, every aspect of the college, governance and leadership, budget and finance, what goes on in the classroom, and what goes on in keeping the lights on. As far as public schools go, I probably am the only one up here who drove a school bus. And I was also an elementary school teacher before leaving education to go into private industry for 10 years in the high-tech field. I then returned to the classroom as a college professor. I've been in higher education for 20 years, and most recently as a college administrator. So I've seen the view from inside the classroom and outside the classroom. I understand how budgets get put together and decisions that are made on the budgets, how they affect what goes on in the classroom and how they affect what goes on in the parking lot. I have a complete 360 view of education, and I think that's what distinguishes me from the other candidates.
Thank you very much. Jay Mason, 1 minute.
I'm sorry, Jim.
One of the things that differentiates me is being a minority. Our minority population is growing, and I would be able to, as a board member, be able to understand what our minorities go through and how I can help our school system work with minorities. I'm also on a few different boards in the community, Student Homeless Initiative Partnership, United Way, so I have some board experience and what it takes to work with other people who aren't always like-minded, like-thinking. So I'm a huge advocate in the community in many different ways, and I think that gives me a different perspective on how education can work and how we can best help our students. One of the things that I learned from United Way is their motto is education, income, and health. And I think if we provide all of those to our students, I think we are doing a great service to them, and we have to focus on all of our students. 26% of our students are living at or below the poverty level. And if we think about those students and try and what we can do to help them the most, I think we will be doing a great service to many of our students. And I also come from working or taking classes in an advanced level classroom, so I also understand what it takes to be a higher level achieving student.
Thank you very much. Shirley McDonald, 1 minute.
As I said, I've been an advocate for public schools since 1984. Part of that advocacy has been speaking out at public forums for the budget, before the former county commissioners, in support of the superintendent's budget. This year, in front of the county council, in support of the impact fee increase. Proud to say that at the last public hearing in front of the county council, there were only 4 speakers who spoke on the impact fees. 2 developers who spoke, 1 person from the League of Women Voters, and myself. That vote passed 5-2 by the county council to increase the impact fees. So I have been very active in getting construction funds passed to help the county get those schools constructed, and I will continue to be an advocate for public school funds.
Thank you very much. Cindy Rose.
It's safe to say I'm the only person up here who's had a child in a public elementary school since the 1980s. I have 5, and they've been in the 80s, the 90s, 2000, and now. So I have a unique perspective on what our children have gone through. I've seen a lot of good programs go by the wayside and a lot of bad programs take their place. I was the only parent or person in the community, with the help of the Republican Club, who had a Common Core town hall to try to inform the public of the horribleness of Common Core that was coming our way and of the park assessments that are now here. You didn't hear the public school system warning you. You had to have the public telling you what the school system should have been telling us. That gives me a unique perspective. That's what differentiates me. I believe the public has a right to know while they can do something about it, not after the fact. That's how I'm different from the majority of people up here.
Thank you very much. And finally, for this round, Joyce Schaefer.
Well, this evening, I am the only person at this table who is a current Board of Education member. So I bring that perspective. But before I touch on what that experience gives me, I want to first speak about the fact that I'm a true believer in terms of the mission of PTA, and that is to bring parents' voices to the table in a real and meaningful way. When I was president and vice president of the board a couple of years ago, under my leadership, we took our meetings out into the public, and our board consistently tries to engage the public in meaningful and different ways. There's so many ways to reach parents in the community today. In terms of my service now, I've built a lot of really strong relationships, both here in Frederick County on the municipal level, at the county level, all the way to the state and federal level. And I've advocated strongly on behalf of Frederick County, not just with our government officials for our schools, but at the state level, regularly in the legislature, as well as with our senators and our delegates that represent Frederick County. I bring that relationship, I bring that experience, and I'm able to bring best practices back to our district, as well as to advocate effectively for us on all of those levels.
Thank you very much. Candidates, now we're going to move on. Thank you so much, by the way. You can give them a round of applause, I think, for answering so oppositely. I don't want to rob you of your applause, so remind me if I need to. Now we'll move on to our more in-depth questions. Candidates, I'll ask each of you a question. As I mentioned, every question will be different. And also, as I explained earlier, you'll have 1 minute if you wish to chime in on any particular question. You can't use it on your own question, naturally, because you already get 2 minutes. Once you use the minute, it's gone, so choose carefully. So these questions were assigned randomly. However, we will address them alphabetically. So we'll start with you, Mike, and go down the line. So, Michael Bunitsky, this is your question. Don't let this influence your answer, but the News Post recently supported changing how school construction money is allocated by the state, particularly finding a better process than the annual begathon. So how would you, if you had your druthers, go about improving this process? And you have 2 minutes.
Well, first I read the letter that was sent by the superintendents. The 3-person committee that they meet with regularly, it's euphemistically called the begathon. But the fact is that money is allocated proportionally ahead of time, and the begathon is for a small portion of it afterwards. I believe that Peter Francho has been a friend of Frederick County for some time, and by alienating him, we may lose some of that money. And I'd hate to see that happen, because we need the funding for our capital improvement. We need to, we're very blessed right now with being able to use the impact fees to leverage $5 million loans to get started on each of our schools. So the impact fees have helped us a lot. The mitigation fees have not. Going back to the state, I think that using those 3 people in a different fashion, by presenting to them in a way that shows our need, because we have one, it's fairly obvious that we have a need for these two schools in particular, but we needed more for Frederick High. I think it's great that our county council and our executive are bringing together a group to study other ways of building schools and of garnering the money that we need for capital improvement to keep our schools being built. We are still a growing county, and we will be a growing county for some time to come, because this is a great place to live and people will continue to move here. So in sum, I believe that the superintendents were expressing an opinion that is just and is justifiable in their minds, but I believe also that they have to take into consideration the political realities that these three people do hold a good bit of money that we need to compete for.
Thank you very much. Would anybody like to use their minute to answer that particular question?
Come on. Come on.
All right, okay, all right, we're going to move on then. Lois Jarman, your 2-minute question. Charter schools, do you support them? Do you oppose them? And why? And have charter schools been given a fair shake from the school administration and the state?
I believe that our public dollars should go to the good of all the public schools. I basis for charter schools that they were to allow new and innovative ideas to be used in instruction. However, I would like to see those ideas be spread across the board. We used to have this wonderful thing called the neighborhood school, and the neighborhood school was really, really important. And so I would like to see us focus more on building our neighborhood schools back and to get all of our schools functioning to the best of their ability rather than to focus on a certain segment. As I understand it, the charter schools do receive a proportional amount per student, but there are certain areas where they do not have to dollar it up, as it were, so they don't contribute towards the human resources, towards central office. So their money is per school, used per student. So as far as equitable, I think that in tight money times, it's about as equitable as it can be. But I think that we really, really need to focus on bettering all of our schools first. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody care to use a minute? Mrs. Rhodes.
I am a big supporter of charter schools, especially when you have things going on in your public school that you're not happy with. As for the allocation of funding, they get about $3,000 or $4,000 less per student when they go to a charter school, and they usually base it on transportation. Frederick County Public Schools has 40,000 students. They only transport 30,000 students. They're getting transportation funding for 11,000 students, but yet they would deny that funding to the charter school. I don't understand that. We also have students who attend school during 11th and 12th grade, and those students don't go a full day. Some of them maybe only go for 1 or 2 courses, and we get full funding for that student. I would give full funding to the charter school. They are part of the public school system. We want them to succeed. They reflect on how well we care about education. So I support charter schools and full funding.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Very good. We'll move on to Dr. Kerr. Dr. Kerr, what are your funding priorities? What do you value? And how have you determined those priorities?
The first funding priority has to go with class size. I don't think there's any greater impact that can be made on student success other than the number of students that are sitting in front of an individual teacher. Right now, even when we hear about schools being 1.5 additional student being added to a class, that doesn't really have to do with the number of students that are in an individual class, but the number of teachers that get assigned to the school. There are some, and beyond that, there are some subjects that are a little bit easier to teach to a larger class than a smaller class. And so we have to look at class size differentiated by discipline and by subject, what's actually going on in the classroom. You can't teach a student how to write when you don't have an opportunity to respond thoughtfully to the work that the students are giving you. Writing is kind of a negotiated activity, and it's learned through a process. So whereas you might be able to have 40 students in a psychology or a social studies class where the grading the tests and types of things tends to be a relatively simple exercise, having more than about 20 students in an English class or writing class really shortchanges the student and overburdens the instructor. So that would be my highest funding priority, would be to not only lower class sizes but to rationalize class sizes.
Thank you very much. Would anybody care to use a minute to speak to that? I would. Ms. Brunitsky?
I'd like to agree with Ken. I believe it's really important to lower the class size. We have discipline problems in our schools, and we have a set of guidelines from MSDE that have handcuffed our teachers. You have a smaller class size, you have less discipline problems. You have a smaller class size, you have greater achievement. You have the ability to move kids from point A to point B because you understand them, you live with them, you get their problems every day. That impacts the achievement gap. The teacher workload, when you have, as Ken so adequately addressed in writing, when you have a teacher that has 120 students and they're doing 120 essays, the quality of the grading can suffer, and certainly the quality of the writing. If we want to move the students forward, we need to have smaller class sizes.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Then we'll move on to Mr. Mason. Speaking of class sizes, last year the Board of Education voted to add a student per class, sort of. It was algorithmic calculation. And the ramifications have been profound, despite saving $4.5 million. School staffing levels will be discussed Wednesday at a system-wide meeting, and no doubt you'll all be paying attention. What would your recommendations be in this area?
As far as class size goes?
Absolutely.
Recommended that we decrease our class sizes by more than a quarter. Last year they increased them by 1, and we have plans to decrease them by a quarter. We need to try to decrease them by more than a quarter. It would be nice to get back to a full student to decrease our class sizes. I also think class size, we can utilize our community to help with our class sizes. I've been able to go into a few classrooms and help out with some students. I think it's more of a community engagement thing that I would like to help improve. Our teachers are very valuable, and we need to help them as much as we help our students. If we can utilize our community to be involved in the classroom, get our parents involved in the classroom, with that increase in class size, we're going to help out our teachers and our students. It's valuable that we give all of our students every possible resource, and our best resources are our teachers, our parents, and our community. If we can't all work together to help our students in our school system.
Very good. We'll move on. Shelley McDonald. The achievement gap is one of the most pervasive problems U.S. education faces today and is something of a deep concern to educators and administrators. Now, while we can concede it's a far more complex issue to answer than in the 2 minutes that we've allotted here, detail for us approaches in Frederick County to close the gap that you feel are or are not working.
Achievement gap issues are working in some schools and not in others, in some classrooms and not in others. We're trying what we can do. Part of the problem is not just class size. Part of the problem, I think, is the students not trusting or not feeling they have the trust and respect of the teachers, or the teachers having the trust and respect of their own administration, and the ability to do what they feel is necessary and appropriate for their own students. I think teachers need to be empowered to be able to do what is necessary for their students. And I think that has been a little bit of a breakdown in the system here in Frederick County, and something we need to be looking at more in order to help our students be successful. Not necessary in every classroom, but in some classrooms. Students need to trust those teachers and know that they're going to be there on a day-to-day basis, and know that they are there for them. I was an intervention teacher. I know what the students wanted. I know that they felt comfortable in my classroom. I know that they could come to me, and they were successful. They needed, first of all, though, to feel the trust. And once I had their trust, they were successful. I think that's something we need to be looking at across the board for the students to be successful in the classroom.
Thank you very much. Would anybody care to use that minute to speak to the achievement gap? Awfully hopeful that these last two questions are going to be really good. All right. We'll move on to Cindy Rose. Cindy, what are your experiences with public education, and how will that experience inform your time on the board if elected?
This was a random question?
This was a random question.
My public experience, it's been mixed. I've had some great experiences and some experiences that would make the average person's skin crawl and go running for the woods. I think most of the people out in the public know my story. My son was made to take a test that other people weren't made to take. I have mixed emotions. The system has failed my son. It has helped my other children. I have issues. I think I can address those by becoming a Board of Education member to highlight that there are certain things we don't have to be doing. We don't have to be taking direction from certain entities who want to direct us. I think that's something that our board needs to remember is it sets the policies. It doesn't let other people set the policies for them. And if someone in your system is doing something to a student they shouldn't be doing, that person should probably resign from their job.
Very good. 1 minute, anyone? Dr. Kerr?
Well, as I said, I was a teacher and am now a college professor. And part of my job here has been to establish a dual enrollment program between Frederick Community College and Frederick County Public Schools, where we are working with properly credentialed high school teachers. And we are giving them the professional development and the oversight in order to have them offer FCC college credit classes right in all of the Frederick County high schools. It's given me an opportunity to go in and observe these teachers in their classrooms, to look at the student evaluations that come out at the end of the night, at the end of the semester, to review their syllabi before the semester even starts. And I can tell you that I'm really impressed with the quality of the high school teachers. Also, the relationship that's been established between the college and the public schools is really the envy of the state of Maryland.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? 1 minute? Lois? Yep. Who wants to take a minute who hasn't taken one?
Okay, am I just where?
Go ahead, Lois.
Lois, you have one?
Go ahead,
Mr.
Lois.
Mason, you have one?
Lois first. Bend over.
All right. Lois Young, 1 minute.
My experience with Frederick County Public Schools, I started as a parent volunteer, and both of my children attended public schools. When I was in the school in my role as PTO president at Brunswick Middle School, I had a conversation with Kevin Lynott about how the kids were enthused and excited about wrestling. And he said, it's just a shame that Brunswick High School doesn't have a wrestling team and all the other schools do. And I said, well, why is that? And he said, well, we don't have anybody to sort of spearhead the idea. So I spoke with Lynn Carr, who was the director of high school phys ed at the time, and we did some fundraisers, and Brunswick High School, as you hopefully know, has a wrestling team. I served on the athletic boosters at Brunswick High School, and then I became a teacher. And so I feel like knowing what teachers go through and how we need to work best, to provide the best for our teachers and our students. So I've seen from both perspectives.
Thank you very much.
My perspective started when I went to kindergarten at Lewistown Elementary School, so I think I have a unique perspective about what goes on in our classrooms. I'd like to think that most of our students are pushed, but that's not always the case. My personal experience with my daughter, I've had to do a whole lot more advocating for her to be in advanced level classes than I think I should have to. Me and my wife have fought hard to get her into an accelerated math class in 7th grade. And I don't think we should fight this hard. I think we should be pushing our students and getting them all into those advanced level classes and trying to make sure that they're getting the skills they need. If we're not making sure that we are advocating for all of our students, I don't think we are doing the correct job with our school system. And I want to make sure that all of our students have an advocate in the classroom so that students like my daughter do not have to fight with their parents to get them into the higher level classes that many of our students get to enjoy. I've seen such a big change in my daughter. She went into the classroom in the middle of the semester and she has a 90% right now. And we had to really advocate to get her there. And I think there's more students out there like that. And if we advocate for them to be in those higher level classes, I think we'll be doing a great job with our students.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Very good. Then our final 2-minute round goes to Joy Schaefer. Joy, the role of a Board of Education member, it's a large commitment of time, I think you would agree. It's almost full-time, you might say. Would you like to see the post of board member become a full-time position? And whether full-time or not, board members, are they paid adequately for their time?
Well, pay for school board members in the state of Maryland varies. There are some members across the state that don't get anything, and some that get more than we do in Frederick County. In Frederick County, Board of Education members get a stipend of $10,000 a year plus expenses that are directly related to their board service, so mileage if you're driving to or from an event or to Annapolis. And the board president, I believe, gets $1,000 above that. It is a full-time job. I believe if you want to do it correctly, it's at least a part-time job. I was just in Boston at the National Convention for School Board Members, where we get a lot of training, we learn a lot about best practices, and the most important thing that we do is network with each other and talk about issues that we have that are common and some of common solutions around looking after our public schools. And easily, the dedicated board members that I meet there have made it a part-time job. I don't think people realize, you see the meetings, and our meetings are quite long, usually 6 hours at least, if not 8. That's a couple of times during the month, as well as all board members serve on external committees and act as liaisons to other organizations on behalf of the board. And I serve at the state level for our state organization as an officer, as well as chair for our legislative committee, which represents all 24 school boards in the state of Maryland to the state legislature. So there's a lot of, and then you want to get to all the events. You want to make sure that you're supporting students, you're supporting teachers. You want to make sure that you're setting an example. We have some priorities that we've identified in our strategic plan, and that means a lot of going to things that we have said as a board are important, and making sure that our presence is known so that our staff, our students, our families understand how important it is to us. So it's definitely at least part-time job, and if you really want to put a lot of effort into it, which I think our public schools and our students deserve, it's easily a full-time job.
Thank you very much. I believe the only minute left is for you, Shirley McDonald, if you wanted to take it or not. All right, how about we move on to our next lightning round? We're halfway through, folks. Good news. Now we're going to take it in reverse order. I'm going to ask you all the same question, and we're going to start with Joy Schaefer. Other than budget restrictions, what do you believe is the single biggest issue facing Frederick County Public Schools? Why? And what do you intend to do about it?
Well, it's an issue, but I look at it as an opportunity. So recently they reauthorized the Public School Education Act, and is now ESSA, I can't remember the acronym, but it's basically what is guiding, the federal law that is guiding requirements for what we as a school system have to provide students. And that law also drives the federally mandated testing that we have to put students through. And we were given a gift by Congress, and they basically gave a lot of governance back to local school boards. And we have an opportunity right now to take that opportunity and help the federal government, the Department of Education, write some rules that allow us not to have these weighty, high-stakes testing. I certainly believe that we should assess our students and make sure that we as a board know that they're ready and prepared to go on from our school system. But I think that we should be working with our state and the Department of Education to alleviate some of that, those required testing, so that they're not so high stakes, and they're not pervasive and invasive in terms of our instruction.
Thank you. We'll wrap it up right there. Cindy Rose, 1 minute.
Same question?
Same question, and I'm happy to repeat if you need me to.
Go ahead.
All right, so the question was, other than budget restrictions,
budget.
so other than the financial stuff, what do you believe is the single biggest issue facing Frederick County Public Schools? Why, and what do you intend to do about it?
I sort of kind of agree with Joy. ESSA, the Every Student Succeeds Act, gave some gifts and made some punitive measures. It did give the gift of saying we defer to states and we'll recognize if they have an opt-out or refusal policy, we will honor that. Doesn't force anybody to take a test. It says it's up to the local school district. Maryland state law says all the decision-making for creating a school system resides with the Board of Education. I think our biggest concern is getting back that control, that the Board of Education designs the vision of education that the public wants. The school administrators implement that, and the teachers bring that to life. But you have to free the teachers in order for them to bring it to life. And you can only free the teachers by removing the Common Core, which gives scripted lessons and scripted plans and has its tentacles in every single class that our children take. That's my biggest concern, is getting back local, community-controlled education. And I think we can do that by saying no to the state of Maryland.
Thank you very much. Shelley McDonald.
One of my 3 ideas for running was to reduce testing, so I'm in agreement with both of them on that as well. Reducing testing doesn't mean reducing all testing in the classroom, obviously, but reducing it to what the teachers need to do. Teachers can assess a student every day in the classroom. They can look at a student and know what is necessary for the student. There's always that aha moment when you see what a student is doing every day in the classroom. And it doesn't take a pencil and paper test or a computer test or any state-mandated test to do that. Teachers are aware every day of what their students know. We need more local control of the testing. We need more of the individual in the classroom testing acknowledgement from the teachers, not just county even, but more teacher control. And that would be my first thought on that.
Thank you very much. Jay Mason.
In my research, deciding to run for the school board, I talked to quite a few teacher friends of mine that I've known for years, and a lot of them had to say that teacher morale was a big problem. And it starts with salaries, it starts with class sizes. There's a whole lot teachers have to deal with, workload. You know, we really need to make sure our teachers are valued and they feel valued. If we cannot do that, then their classrooms are disrupted, and the students can tell when their teachers are not in a good mood. They're not happy. They're not liking their job. They're not feeling good about what they're doing. And if we can't make our teachers happy, then they're on the front lines. Then they're dealing with our students directly, and they have to feel like they're valued. Their opinion makes sense. Their opinion is being heard. And I like to be a voice when teachers are feeling their morale is down. I'd like to be a voice for them to take to the superintendent, to take to our administrators, and help them whatever they need to feel better about doing their job. Because if they're not doing a job well, then our students are negatively affected.
Thank you so much. Ken Kerr, 1 minute.
I think you've heard both of the big issues. We need less testing and more learning, but we also need to pay attention to teacher recruitment and retention. Starting salary in Frederick County is near the lowest in the state, around $43,000 a year for a starting teacher with a bachelor's degree. And these teachers haven't seen a significant salary increase in nearly 8 years. You can't buy a home and raise a family in Frederick County on $43,000. What can we do to keep these teachers satisfied and happy in their jobs as we await a better budget picture? We can pay attention to what works in the workplace. What makes workers highly satisfied in their jobs? First of all, we need to recognize them for the work they do and celebrate the work they do. We need to give them the respect that they've earned and that they deserve. And we need to give them the freedom to decide the best way to teach the students that are sitting in front of them.
Thank you very much. Lois Jones.
I would agree with the testing and our teachers, but I think that what we need, I think if we focused on giving our teachers autonomy in the classroom, that we would be able to resolve some issues. Instead of being told what to teach and how to teach, we as teachers are, we specialize in the areas that we teach. And so please allow me some autonomy to teach the way I think is the best for my students. I recognize that some students learn better learn better with technology. Some students learn better hands-on. Everyone learns differently. And to give the teacher the power to make that decision in the classroom. Teachers have bachelor's degrees, teachers have master's degrees, and they recognize when students are learning and when students are not. And I've been asked about, what about there are, so-and-so had problems with a really bad teacher. I don't think that well, first of all, you don't go into teaching to get rich quick. And people go into teaching because they love it and they're called and it's something that they really want to do. So I am concerned that we don't help those teachers who need help, more mentor teachers, more presence of administrators in not attacking the teaching, but helping to improve the teaching.
Thank you very much. Michael Bunitsky.
Well, I think the biggest issue I have is current staffing formulas and school restructuring. We need to study how these things are done because it could solve a lot of the problems that the colleagues just talked about, a great many of them. It would affect class size, it would affect resource allocation, it would affect our resource allocation for our growing ESL program, which is just neither fish nor fowl. It doesn't seem to fit in where it needs to, and it's grown by thousands of %. It would affect our awareness of our drug epidemic that we have. We don't have a DARE program anymore. When we restructure schools and look at them, we constantly talk about 21st century schools, and yet our schools are still structured like they were in 1900. We have to look at how we can change those schools. It affects teacher workload, it would affect professional development, and it would give opportunities. I think we could create opportunities for teachers to become leaders and not have to look to become administrators to raise their salary, but find an intermediate area where they could help each other and help the school itself to achieve.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we're on the home stretch here. Now we're on to our round 4. We're going to go into deeper questions again. Once again, a unique question for each of you. Once again, each of you have a minute if you wish to answer one of the questions that's asked. So we're going to start once again down the end of the table with Joy Schaefer. What, if anything, can be done to improve the starting salary for Frederick County's teachers, which is among the lowest in the state? Should we do anything?
Well, we should certainly do something because I believe that Carroll County was the last in terms of starting teacher salaries until they made a commitment on their board to not be last anymore. So while they're second to last, I believe that makes us last. And what that affects is our recruiting. And second to a supportive home environment and a family that supports that student at home, the most important resource that that student has in order to directly affect that student's success is the teacher that's in front of that student every single day in the classroom. And if we can't recruit the best possible people to come to our county, to stay in our county, and to take a job and answer the call of being a teacher, which, as Ms. Jarman said, is a call. And we want those folks who truly want to teach, but they also want to pay their student loan debt back. They want to maybe start a family. And it's part of growing Frederick County and making it continue to be the vibrant and strong community that it is. So it's not just a reinvestment in students, it's a reinvestment in the rest of Frederick County because schools are an economic for our county and for the communities in which they reside. And healthy schools and strong schools are strong communities. And if we have young teachers or teachers that are coming from another industry that want to change jobs and that are looking to relocate or they're looking to remain here, maybe they've grown up here and they want to remain in Frederick County, that's how we remain a strong, vibrant place to work and live and play, and we all have a better quality of life.
Very good, thank you. Would anybody care to take a minute to speak to the question? Cindy Rose, 1 minute.
You have to agree with the premise that we have low salaries. Our starting salary is lower than most, yes, but the Board of County Commissioners, when we had them, offered to raise that. The union was against raising just the lower. If it wasn't going to raise everybody, didn't want to raise anybody. Teachers aren't complaining about salaries according to the documents I read. I read the exit interview reports. And those only have 17% of teachers stating that the most significant reason they're leaving is due to salary. And of those, most of them list multiple significant reasons. Teachers are not leaving because they aren't being paid well. Let's get over that notion.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? All right, then, Ms. Rose, keep the mic.
Oh,
It's going to be your question next. What are your priority capital projects? That's the building renovation, construction, maintenance for Frederick County.
Rock Creek School. It's a big budget item. We spend a lot of money on out-of-county placement. I think a lot of parents could be put to ease. A lot of money could be saved if we could bring, not all of them, because some of them students will be better served elsewhere, but if we can redo Rock Creek and make it a full top-notch facility, we could bring a lot of those students back home, save tens of millions of dollars perhaps, if we do that.
Caught me in the middle of taking a sip. Thank you.
Sorry.
Would anybody else like to speak for a minute on the subject of capital funding? Nope. All right. Then if you would, pass the mic to Shirley McDonald. The Board of Education controls more than half the county's tax dollars, once allocated, that is, but has no authority to raise the money in the first place. Now, Maryland is only one of maybe a dozen or so states that don't allow their education boards a measure of control over taxes. Should the Board of Education have taxing authority in Frederick County?
Interesting question. I've thought about that a lot. I don't think Frederick County should have taxing authority. I don't think it would work in Frederick County for a number of reasons, one of which we would have difficulty raising the amount of money we need for the Board of Education. It's been an interesting issue over the years. Like I say, I've been involved since 1984 in trying to raise funds for public schools, and every time the thought of raising taxes has come up, there's been a huge outcry about that. We've gone through the MOE spending crisis of the last several years, and MOE is not maintenance of effort, it's minimal effort. And it should not be something that is ever done to public schools, ever again, because the students are the ones that suffer on that. How the Board of Ed would raise the funds, I don't think would be possible because of the financial institutions that would be required to do that. And I know Board of Ed has talked about that. They would have to have an entirely separate entity to do that, to raise the funds, to have another division to collect the funds, to spend them as well, when the county already has that division set up. So it would be it would not be cost efficient to do that. So I don't think it would be something that Frederick County would be doing at this time.
Thank you very much. Anybody wish to talk to that for a minute? Taxing authority? No. Mr. Mason, your question. The state and school district has emphasized students being college or career ready, but is there too much emphasis on college readiness? How well is the system doing in preparing students who enter technical fields, for example? And what, if anything, would you change on that front?
When I went to Shepherd, I didn't graduate on time. I went and played football, and I don't think I was ready for school. And I think that it takes a lot to be ready for college. Our teachers need to focus on what our individual students need to get them ready for college. There's a lot of preparation that you need to do as an individual, and a lot of that has to come from home. I don't think it needs to rely on our teachers to prepare our students for college. If we have a good home situation, the students are going to be ready to go to college. Like I said, I didn't graduate on time, but I enjoyed my time in college, and I think it was valuable for me to go to school. And I think that many of our students should have the opportunity to go to college. If they need to start at FCC, we give them the tools they need to go to FCC. It's a great institution. It's a great way to start. Preparing our kids for college or career is something that we all need to do as a community. We have many of our parents that haven't been to college and don't push our students to go to college or be prepared for a career. And I think it's something that, like I've said many times here tonight, it's a community thing. We have to work together to help our students prepare for anything beyond high school. Because once you get past high school, life starts. There's no, coming back to mom and saying, I need this, I need that. We need to make sure that our students are college or career ready. Our CTC program, Career and Technology Center, is underutilized, yet restricted by some of their classroom sizes. They have to turn away many students, and I think that program needs to be expanded. When we build Butterfly Ridge, why not use Hillcrest as another CTC program? I think it's great to get our students prepared for something. I'm in real estate, and I rely on plumbers, electricians, HVAC people all the time, and I think if we're going to prepare our students, we have many jobs out there for our students to do once they get past high school.
Thank you. Would anybody care to use a minute? Okay, so I have Joy Schaefer, Ken Kerr, and then Lois Jarman. So, Mrs. Schaefer, you'd like to go first.
Well, I just want to make everybody aware that some of the reasons we emphasize college and career ready is that's a state requirement. There are some legal requirements to that, and that's a push down from the federal level as well as the state. But when we do say college and career ready, we are talking about FCC. We're talking about any four-year institution, whether they're a community college or an Ivy League, all of that entire gamut, 4- and 2-year programs as well. So I just wanted to make that clear. And what I would advocate for is it's really all about options. When you're on the board, you are really trying to look towards the future, a future that nobody can predict. And we are trying our best to look at what might our students need in order to be successful wherever they choose to go after they graduate and leave us here. And we need to make sure that there are options for all kinds of different learners in all kinds of different ways so that each and every student can find their own unique path in order to be successful going forward.
Thank you very much. Now, I believe, Ken, you were next.
Yeah, I'd agree there is too much emphasis on college, especially people who feel pressured to go to college when they really don't know what they want to do. And as a result, they end up running up $70,000 of debt with a bachelor's degree in psychology and working at Starbucks. So, but when we think about college, I don't think we're thinking about college in a global perspective. Here at Frederick Community College, there are programs you can complete in a year that will get you ready for a career. Other point I'd like to make is the same things that make you college ready make you career ready. The soft skills, being able to work together as a team, being able to read well, being able to write well, having good time management skills, having a strong work ethic. Both of those are what prepares you for a career and for college.
Thank you very much. Lois Jarman, 1 minute.
As Ms. Schaefer said, these are mandates in terms of what we do as far as college and career. I think that we need to take the focus off of college and put it more on career. But I recently learned at a workshop that if one of our CTC students passes a licensure exam in, let's say, plumbing, if they do not pass their PARCC assessments in English and math, they're not considered college and career ready. But I would hire them as a plumber if they have a license. So my question is now that we do have the Every Student Succeeds Act, ESSA, and the power has shifted from the federal level to the state level, we need to change these things at the state level. We do have a number of programs at CTC and other programs that we should be encouraging our students to enter instead of putting the focus on college readiness. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Last chance on this question. Very good. Let's move on to Ken Kerr. Ken, your question. On the budget, in particular the budget, what are some areas of waste or duplication in Frederick County Public Schools that you would like to attend to?
Do you know, every election cycle, there's a candidate that gets up here and vows to seek out and eliminate the waste in the Frederick County school budget. I have yet to see a candidate who's been elected on that platform identify or eliminate any waste. Now, having said that, there are ways to optimize the money that is there. Money can be used more effectively in some areas than it can in others. For example, I think a lot of the resources that we're applying towards testing, not just monetary resources, but financial resources, we can find ways. Some tests are required for compliance purposes, for accountability purposes. Other tests are discretionary. Also, I don't know why we don't look at statistical sampling. It's the way we do everything else. It's the way we make decisions on our country, is by doing random samples. We've proven that they're statistically valid. Why do we need to test every student in every class every year? That's an issue of waste that can't be decided at the local level. It would have to be decided at the policy level, at the state and national level. And I know there are some other candidates up here who can also say this, but I have worked at the state level, reviewing state regulations, helping to draft state policy, helping to get those types of decisions made in Annapolis. So I think with the right component of a Board of Education, we can advocate for those types of things and make an impact, not just here in Frederick County, but across the state and potentially across the country.
Thank you. Anybody like to use a minute? No? All right, 2 questions left. And we're moving on to Lois Jarman. Is it time to give the Board of Education student representative a vote? Oh, and if not, why not?
Is it time? I think that it's important that we have student representation on the board, but I believe that the board members are elected by the community, and our students do not legally have the right to vote. They do vote in terms of the student who is selected to serve on the board. But I think right now that it's best that that student serve in an advisory capacity, sharing his or her experience with board members. Right now, I think that we should just rely on the elected officials on the board. Thank you.
All right. Mike.
I have a different opinion. I've worked with students and helped select the student member of the board since 1994. I think listening to my mentor, Carl Manweiler, who taught me, he was the first principal of TJ High School, to listen to students. You have to filter some of it because they, like all of us, come with a bias. But there are certain things that they should have the right to vote on. There's a grading regulation that will be changed. We wrote the grading regulation a long time ago. Their final grade is 20% created by their final exam. We're going to talk about that, or the board is going to talk about that and make some decisions about that, and they're going to vote on it. The only person that will not get to vote is the only person that will be affected by the decision, and that's the student. I think students have a place in determining discipline, in determining dress codes, in determining their grades, in determining the way in which they sign up for courses. There are a listing of the regulations and policies on fcps.org, and if you go through them, you'll see that some of them the students should be allowed to vote for. Obviously not finances, budget, or hiring and firing.
Thank you very much. So our final question, Mike, keep the mic in front of you there. Our final question is going to you. Is it practical and cost-effective to stay with the current 180-day, 10-month school year, recognizing that this is a state requirement? Are there any changes you would advocate before our delegation as far as changes to the schedule to improve student learning and make better use of resources?
I'm not sure that anything that I have to say will be highly regarded in this, mainly because I firmly believe that we need to restructure our schools. If we're looking at 21st century schools, we need to change the way we do business. So we have had calendar committees that have been beat up by the community on numerous occasions. We fight over Fair Day, we fight over when we're going to put our snow days in. 180 days is required by the state, but we want to eliminate the achievement gap. Some of those students in elementary school should be in school 240 days out of the year, and we need to give them that opportunity. But those are the things that keep getting cut. Summer school gets cut, the extra programs after school get cut. There's a variety of things that get cut and aren't advocated for strongly enough. I would advocate for a calendar and a calendar committee that it doesn't just get beat up over Fair Day and other days, that would go year-round. We can keep some of our schools, not all of them, not all 67 schools, but some of them going year-round, in particular in the elementary and middle school years, for the students to catch up so that they could come forward and catch up to their grade level. And if we have to deal with state testing, we have to deal with PARCC, they would end up being proficient, and we would move them forward and hopefully close some of that achievement gap. But that's just part of the process of restructuring schools and looking at how we can change the dynamics of how we run our schools. It's not that they're run badly, but if we keep doing the same thing, it's not going to change much. And even if we bring in good tools like computers and iPads and make all the technology there, that is good in some respects, but it's not the be-all and end-all. We still need to have kids in front of teachers.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mason and Mrs. McDonald, you have a minute left if you wanted to answer that final question.
Many of our families don't have the luxury to go on vacation in the summer or be able to support their children because the other spouse is working. They need that school time to help their children, to help them because they're working 2 jobs. They can't go for 3 months out of the year without any kind of expensive childcare. We have to think about many of our families in poverty because they need our schools. Our students lose a lot over the summer, and our most vulnerable students, our most vulnerable families could utilize having that extra time in the school system. I don't think we need to go after Labor Day. As Mike said, that's going backwards. We need to keep going forward. It's the 21st century, and going to school after Labor Day is not the ideal time to go. We can't worry about our families that are missing vacation time because they have to go to school on August 19th. I find it rather pleasurable for my daughter to go to school in August and get out in June. I think she needs it, and if our teachers are getting those teacher work days they need, they catch up. You know, my time in the classroom, it was valuable that I had those days to be able to grade papers. There's a lot to do to be able to be a teacher, and if you don't have those teacher work days, you're drowning basically.
All right, thank you. Anyone else?
I have to admit, as an intervention teacher, I often thought it would have been really nice to have had my students most of the summer as well. It would have helped eliminate the achievement gap. I attended many of the meetings years ago under Superintendent Dale when he was talking about the year-round school. I attended a lot of those meetings. We talked about that for a number of months, and then the county dropped the issue because it was apparently not something that we thought at that time we could go forward with. It's always been a thought in my mind that it was something that would help with achievement gap. Would it be something we would ever consider? I don't know, but it has always been something I have considered. I think it's a way to help with also the cost of schools. We could possibly double up on classrooms that way as well. Just another thought.
Thank you very much, and it is the thought that we'll end with for our round of questions and answers. Thank you very much. Candidates, please give them a round of applause. Very well. Thank you. So the final part of our forum tonight allows our candidates a few final words. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's close out the evening with our 1-minute closing statements. Once again, reverse alphabetical order, so we'll be starting with Joy Schaefer at the end. Please go ahead, 1 minute.
Well, again, thank you all for coming out tonight. I just wanted to remind everybody, well, first let me just say that our public schools are in a wonderful place. There's a lot of challenges. We've faced a lot of change over the last 6 years. What I'm hoping is with the authorization of the new law that we'll be able to work with our state in terms of figuring out what's best for all of our boards of education and all of our schools across the state of Maryland and here in Frederick County. And to touch on the fact that you're going to be voting for a Board of Education member, and you get 3 picks. You can take that ballot and pick your top 3 candidates, which I think is an excellent opportunity. I hope that you'll focus on people who are looking forward, because we really need to make sure that we're preparing our students for what faces them in the future. I hope that you'll be looking for a candidate that knows the role of public schools within the larger community, because it's a benefit to all of us, whether or not you have school-aged children. And I do also want to say that regardless of your affiliation, you are able to vote for the Board of Education. So I encourage you to go out and vote in the primary, regardless of your affiliation, because you can vote for 3 people here up on the stage. We're at the end of the ballot, and I'm at the end of that list.
Thanks. So a reminder, 3 people, and don't forget to read all the way through the ballot. Thank you. Cindy Rose, 1 minute.
So I recently discovered a blog written by a retired FCPS Middletown band director, Gary Rupert. Some of y'all may know him. Today on his blog, he wrote that schools have been doing it all wrong. He said it shouldn't be about graduation rates, absenteeism, and test scores. He said we need to make the focus on making a student feel successful in at least one thing. He said, and this is an exact quote, "Track any student in school who is and feels like an integral part of the school program, whether it's academic, artistic, athletic, or social, and you will find a student who doesn't need to look somewhere else." He also said, "Ignore the experts." And I agree. If you're interested in continuing down the current path of expert-crafted reforms currently supported by the FCPS administration, then you have a lot of other choices. If you're interested in saving the Mr. Johnstons and restoring singing, I'm your only clear choice, and I ask you to vote for me in April. My website is frederickforlocalcontrol.com, and you can find me on Facebook, Cindy for Board of Education, and I thank you all for coming out here tonight and for your interest in public education.
Thank you very much. Shelley McDonald.
Thank you all for coming out tonight. As I started in the beginning, I am a mother of 2, grandmother of 3. Both of my children graduated from Leonore High. All 3 of my grandchildren are in the Oakdale Feeder District. I've got 2 in high school, 1 in elementary school, so I will be invested in Frederick County for a number of years to come. I have been involved, as I said, since 1984 in Frederick County Public Schools and will continue to be so. I've been a teacher since 1993. I did not start teaching until I was in my 40s, so I was late coming to the game. So, as I said, I started out as a parent volunteer, got my 1,000 hours as a volunteer, got my PTA lifetime membership as a teacher, not as a volunteer in the PTA, as a parent, but as a teacher. And now I'm looking for your vote. I would like to see all citizens in our community have a voice in our education system, and I will listen and be that voice. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jay Mason, 1 minute.
I've been working with eliminating the achievement gap since 2011, and I've been focused on eliminating the achievement gap and how to help reduce that achievement gap now. And I think I've come up with a pretty good formula, and I think it starts with us, the community. We can't say our schools are doing the wrong thing or our schools are not good. We need to build our schools up. We need to support them in any way we possibly can. Our students need our community support, our teacher support. I work with Dr. Albin, the superintendent of public schools. I work with other individuals. The way to get things done is to work together. We can't do this individually. We cannot blame the school system for our failing students. We have to build up our failing students. We have to build up our highly able learner students. We have to build up our teachers. We have to build a stronger community. Good schools, good business, strong community. I think that's what we need to work towards.
Thank you very much. Ken Kerr.
kerrforboe.com, Facebook, and Twitter. I've seen education from the view of the classroom, and I've seen education from the view as an administrator. The two views are very different, and the two views together give me perspective. The perspective to understand how decisions made on Wednesday night will affect the lives of teachers and students on Thursday mornings. I have a strong conviction that public education is important, and I'm committed to public service. I have a demonstrated ability to make decisions that improve teaching and learning, and I've been on both sides of the money, and I know how to make the best use of the money we have. Public education is a time-honored profession. It's to be protected and nurtured, not dismantled and weakened. We need people who will be vigilant in the defense and care of this cornerstone of democracy. I have respect for students, teachers, and parents, and the unique relationship they share. I have the courage to stand up for my convictions and the time and energy to devote for this office, and I ask for your support.
Thank you very much. Lois John, 1 minute.
I became involved in this race because I thought it was time that educators have a say in education policy. I'll be having surgery on Wednesday, and I certainly don't think that my surgeon would appreciate my telling him how to do his job. I think that we need people who have been in the classroom, who have experience working with students, who have experience instructing curriculum, who have experience working with parents. I think that those types of people need to be represented on our boards that make policy for our schools. And so that's why I decided to run for the Board of Education. I saw firsthand what reform that was written largely by corporate leadership and not largely by education professionals. I have seen what the reform has done to our schools, and I know that we need to make a change. And so I hope that you will vote for me on the 26th. And if you need more information on me, I'm at loisjarman.org. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Finally, Michael Vinitsky.
Thank you all for attending and showing your interest in education and in the civic process. It's really, really nice to look out here and see so many familiar faces and mostly friendly faces. Tonight. It makes it easier for all of us to do this, and some retired teachers and some active teachers. One of my students wrote me on Facebook and said, "Now we get to grade you." And he was absolutely right. There's a whole bunch of them that have been talking and scoring me and making me feel nervous about the opportunity to vote for me. I retired on February 1 of 2016. I filed for office the next day because, like most of these folks, I believe that my multiple positions, from being a teacher, an administrator, working in the unions, being a negotiator, dealing with students, dealing with student activities, multiple perspectives gives me a perspective that is different from many others. I want to be part of a board that moves our school forwards out of this recession and creates a plan of action to keep Frederick County moving forward for years to come. And if you would all please, we want to thank Cliff and the Frederick News Post. So he's asked you to applaud for us. Would you applaud for Cliff tonight?
You know how I hate to be in the spotlight, Mike. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I was going to ask you to applaud, but let's really applaud the candidates and yourselves. Thank you for coming out tonight. That concludes our forum for the evening. Don't forget to vote, and please, by all means, pick up a copy of our voters' guide and the League of Women Voters Voters Guide on April 18th. Thank you so much for coming out. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'll be thinking of you. And I wonder if Sakira's going to be back in town.
Oh, opened it?
For Wednesday.
Yes,
If
yes,
Sakira's going
they
to
are
be back
just
for
squeezing.
Wednesday, if he's out of the country.
Kyle is here somewhere.
Yes.
I saw him
Kyle.
in Boston
Oh, yes, yes.
running the thing.
Okay.
I don't see him right now, but he might be out.
Okay.
I'll put it out on email if he's not. I only wish I could write